the introduction, the opportunity to share with us some brief thoughts on this particular theme, after which I will engage them on some of the issues that we raised and broader issues that relate to our identity, retracing the roots, the goal of young people, what we can all do together to address this problem, if at all there is any. And of course, you have also the opportunity to, as well here in this auditorium, or wherever you're watching us from across the world, engage us on some of the issues that we raised here. And so the first person, in no particular order, would be Nabajwa Abdubia Asante, the acting director, the National Folklore Board. And here you can have the National Folklore Board is a state institution responsible for the administration, registration, promotion, and legal protection of expression of folklore in Ghana. Folklore, also known as traditional cultural expressions, refers to how we express our culture as a people. Consequently, folklores also include music, dance, art, designs, names, signs, symbols, performances, ceremonies, among many other such artistic and cultural expressions. And so we're very happy that on an occasion like this, of somebody like Anandra to join us for a conversation. We're very happy, Anandra, that you join us. Very shortly, when we come to you, I'll hear the thoughts there, and I'm sure our audience right here and all over the world will be able to hear you. So thank you very much, Anandra. And very quickly, also introduce Mr. Kalu Maudi Paul. He's an affiliate of the Institute of African Studies University of Ghana, along with from the Lagos Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy University of Ghana, and he's also currently a graduate research assistant at the Institute of African Studies University of Ghana. So quite clearly, this is along with when it comes to issues of African integration, trade, and many other things like that. He also has some background in Pan-Africanism and all of those very interesting disciplines in that area. So I'm very happy to also have Ellen join us today. And then we have a friend also join us from Benin. That's Akusi Morasi. He is a private person, and of course, he's so many things. He's a social entrepreneur, lobbyist from the Republic of areas of private law, cultural rights, specialists, and then on when it comes to these development issues of area. So maybe you spare some time just spend on that for conversation. And I know that for many of you, we appreciate that you think of that. And again, it talks about the role of you across all the people. I want you to run us through some of the things that also run through your mind as you talk about this and how you be able to have a conversation about it. What does this mean into?
Karen, thank you very much. And good afternoon to everyone sitting here, all those listening and watching us across Ghana and the continent. Yes. And let me also say thank you to Professor Fashion for that glorious introduction and opening up into an insightful conversation. And I'll pick up exactly where I stopped, and I was particularly interested in the quotation reading from Dr. Kwesi Adri, who's called the Kwesi Adri of Africa. He says that fundamental enslavement is enough, but what makes people despite their own culture is far worse. And that I agree and I identify myself with what Kwesi Adri was saying some 40, 50, 60, probably 70, 80 years ago. Now, when I receive this invitation, one thing shocks my mind, and it's a very interesting, complex, but quite a controversial area especially in Arabia, that we've been tinkering with over the past 20, 30 years, which is decoloniality, fits into a broader conversation about how Africans retrace their past. Retracing one's past will go back as far back as 40, 400, 500 years. Just last year, we're celebrating the year of return, which is a clear indication of where the first Africans were taken from our shores into the West Indies, the Americas, and elsewhere to do across the work of plantations and so on, the slave counts, all of that. And you would also remember the tales of Douglas, the famous former slave who broke bounds from the master's home or house and became a very good or clear architect of African freedom, African identity, and creation. One can also lose sight of the works of W.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, and all the rest of the people who did something about African identity and also the African personality. Anytime Kwame Nkrumah is mentioned, it is because of his programmatic thrust and the way he sought to construct the African for us to accept who we are and also appreciate our flaws and work on them. One can also not have this conversation without touching on the work of post-independent African leaders like Julius Nyerere, who is called a teacher because of his unique approach to African development. And also Kenneth Kaunda, who was buried a couple of weeks ago, who was described as the last man standing of the founding fathers of African political and economic liberation, his ideas of socialism, and all the other forefathers who saw, especially Nelson Mandela, some of them here, so much, and all the other people I cannot mention them because it's an exhaustive list. But personally, when I saw this particular event, I am tempted to recount my own responsibilities to my students at the Lagos Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, where MA program we have. Part of the program is to teach students on a tour. We call it the ECOWAS migration tour. So what we do is to do all the heritage sites, the slave camps, we do the muscles, we do the refugee sites, we go to the border, and we come here, which is to practically introduce students to the experiences and the thinkers, to reconnect them to the past, and illuminate the history that guides us. And that also fits into the academic program, the courses that we run at the university. And I've been doing that for the past 4 years. The first time I did that was in 2017. And when you go to the Elmina Castle and the history is recounted, you will feel the horror. You will also feel the sadness about how a group of people were treated inhumanely. And you will ask, in your own homes, and when you get into the castle, you feel the stench the castle. And if you have a very good tour guide who can recount the history, it creates a certain imagery in your mind. Your time travel as far back as 400 years, how people were treated. When you get to a Sigma zone, where the slaves have the final bath before they are embarked to the coast, and how they are forced, especially slave masters who always want to have a certain identification on the human beings they are across the oceans. They enforce them sometimes hot when it comes to describe identity on them. And you would move to all the places, and finally, when you end up at some of the refugee camps, and be the Ampire refugee camp, I go to Buram, but there is one in the western region called Ampire. Ampire was built in the late 90s and early 2000s for those fleeing the ravages of war in some attempts for post-war reconstruction and development, so that Ghana can lend a helping hand to our brothers and sisters who were brought in the modern conflicts. Sierra Leone, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire have people who are there. So identity continues to be a subject matter construction, especially in our part of the Bolivarian history. Some of this form people who are even in conflicts and continue to remain these monuments that give you a feeling how they are suffering. Monuments, heritage, history does not only become a tourist attraction. It is an incipient reminder of who the people are and the processes through which we have gone and why we need to take this history seriously. And I'm particularly happy about the reintroduction of decoloniality, especially in education, in governance, in politics. You see the American people doing that when they launched the year of the 10 a year ago, and what we did, especially around education, even in governance, setting the record straight, because there were so many distortions in the history. I had the privilege of studying under one professor, senior researcher of Madeline Cambon, and what he does is to rewrite the narratives, readjust the history, filling the missing pieces. Now, these is one of the reasons why I got attracted to this African States position in the global community. And it is important that when we speak about identity, we speak of identity in governance, we speak of identity in the economy, in trade, in sports, in everything that we seek to do. When identity becomes holistic, identity becomes comprehensive, so identity has some forward and backward linkage to who we are as a people. I'm excited to be a part of this project, this program, and I know that my colleagues who will be speaking from other parts of the continent will also have some beautiful contributions to this.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much once again. I really appreciate it. I'm going to come there very shortly. Please hold me. I'm going to come there very shortly. But we've also had some of our colleagues and panelists on Zoom for a while now. I am not sure if the technical bit is done now. I want to move to another area with the National Folklore Board and get preliminary remarks also on the theme and what exactly this means to you. It was quite clear for the kind of work that the National Folklore Board does. Definitely really within their area, and of course, they definitely will have some very interesting thoughts to share there. So I don't know if I have the go ahead from the technical team to move straight away on Zoom to interact with Nanajwa, after which we'll go to Benin also. Already the consensus I get from the end is that the connection will be very bad in terms of the sound quality. So if you can address that for me, I'll be very, very happy. But there are a lot of things that Ellen has touched on that will be delving into. And I'm very, very happy also, especially for those here within the auditorium, to share their views also on some of these matters. But so I guess this is what I'm going to do now because we have sort of gotten the clearance from the production team to move on to Zoom for the engagement from that end. I want to then engage right here. Sorry, we have someone raising their hand and wanted to come to do. No, that this issue actually is one that will generate very interesting discussions. Was the class and that and all of that.
So, my preliminary remarks.
So that we can get more remarks right and so so this one is it would be yourself and share or something else.
Hello.
Yes, just so they can also
thank you so much, Dr. And from the United States, I just want to make a comment is when you talk about the castles, as you guys call them, you really need to say castles and dungeons because those of us who come back to this continent to go through that process are the castles. So it's good, and I told me else, you guys spoke to Kristen about this as well. And said, and that's why you see castles and dungeons, because we came from the dungeons. We were taken to the dungeons. We weren't able to the castle piece. And so when I hear it, when I talk to people, I talk about the dungeons when my ancestors had to go to get to what they call war. So I really wish you would consider saying castle and dungeons, because those we got passage and our ancestors, when we come back, we look and we know we can come to castle. And so it's kind of insulting to me sometimes, and I told them, we come out, we want to know. And we just want to get that culture, and we do all the time like it. I've been trying to do he's coming through that and when all these strong, so many of us, so many of our ancestors, died along that trail. And talking to and letting us know some of the horrific conditions which our ancestors were put into to get to the new world. Was that it wasn't the new world, it was the new world. That was the comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this because these debates are not without controversies of some stuff. Sometimes because of our own socialization and the sort of education part of another, we miss a lot of the things. People of African descent in the diaspora. Especially bring some of these matters from how the rest of us be on this continent for all our lives, also come to some of these debates. And so I'm quite excited to get to this one. But as we still try to recall, it's also different. I want to bring along back in, especially on the issues raised so far, the raised controversial to some extent issue to be discussed. African identity is on many other things like that.
Appreciate the ambition from especially yes, it is important, and I agree also to nuance that all of these conditions. This is history, and there's also concepts and shrines or not to be overly emotional, overly romantic accounts of these houses. But yes, the dungeons we have dungeons, and the dungeons are just how and a place that last gets, because if you do not in a castle, you find the sleeping place of the women, especially where they bath, where they eat, and where they take out themselves, especially where they private. You find these are people who really endure very abusive situations, and you wonder whether economic advantages or you want to ask whether humanity is humanity, because if another person can do this to another person, probably because of invitational rights, and that is why we cannot stop talking about colonialism. This is colonialism. That is why we keep colonialism. Now, these issues, they are very sketchy in the sense that it depends on which side of the divide you are. If you are an African in America, you hear these things every day. We in Ghana, we follow the Black Lives Matter, follow it, we follow it all across the world. In Ghana here, we commemorate the for the happened. But it's not the same in the United States, and you face racist tendencies every day when you Friday, and especially at the time for us, all muscular, driving, club, very sensitivity, and because the imagination of the thinking is like we are danger to society. And these are some of the issues that African American bodies face or deal every day. So we have shifted, we also provide the situation we find ourselves in. We are always excited anytime we are taking the attempts to connect that and also bringing the so like it's in a way we can choose to do things. Yesterday when the African American was commemorating their founders, he said something which I found very contradictory. And since this is sort of an early discourse, so to say, in a sense, I think I'm allowed to understand that briefly. Yeah, the second was that they are trying so much to move away from the colonial practices and also the colonial prefect policies that have become a former and albatross on their necks. There's a lot of a problem for me. I am very careful to ascribe our laziness, I mean, as a people, or governors to say as a people, to how the colonists and also the other institutions continue to use the colonial institutions. But it is very difficult to educate us of structures that run as far back as 400 times is an incidental process. Independence is also an outcome of colonialism. So after independence, the structures that existed during the period of colonialism, 150 years, are going to continue to be useful. And I can point you to several examples. Education, University of Ghana, 1948, we continue to use them. The program, the courses are colonially designed courses. And I will come to governance, what we have adopted, what we continue to do. And even our economic system, the neoliberal economic system, all the contradictions and areas in there, we are adopted, we are started. Let me point you to several real examples, like housing. Between the 1960s and the 1980s, what you find around are government bungalows. Government bungalows, lots of which were built during the colonial period. The government took over in 1957. Over the period of 1970s and 80s, they were in use. Subsequent governments tried so much to pile up to the bungalows. And within the 1980s, there was a poverty boom. Poverty boom as a result of privatization. There were lots of privatization.
So in the context of how the world is becoming today, I mean, if you look at internet, for instance, it's literally bringing everybody together. Look at the international politics among American things, trade, and all of that. So, within that context, do you think that this idea of identity is still significant in that realm, or as the world is moving towards a more uniform, a more globalized setup, we should completely forget about all of those things and seek to integrate into the system as it is and get closer and closer to the corridors of power so that we can also enjoy whatever it is there is in this world today.
Well, that is what societies that are developed and development has subsisted on culture will tell you that well, culture is not important, it's not important to call yourself an African, and we are all one, globalized continent. But as far as the Chinese culture exists, the Chinese ways of doing things exist. As far as we have the Japanese, who are the point here to report the superiority on the global scale from the major restoration of 1686. As far as you have the American and all the conversations about the American dream. As far as you will have the European, and there is even a subject or a thing or idea called Eurocentrism. Certainly, we should have Africanization, Africanism, that also situates the African thinking, the African way of doing things. Now, you cannot have universal, there's nothing like universal culture. Because people's identity, people's formation, who they are shaped, first of all, from within their homes, then to the other domains of society, which becomes a communal. That is why in Ghana, you cannot have a Ghanaian culture. You could have some parallels that travel or punctuate the way people do things. Greetings is probably the way people do programs across the cross-section of society, and how that is done is different between or varies from the north even to the south.
I'm going to touch on me there. I'm going to come back to you, but I really want to do this and get to Zoom now. I'm sure that the connection is better. I believe you can hear me, Nanaja.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Do a test. So you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
To also join us, especially because
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It seems the person is on mute, so I do not know if you can hear me. The account, Eric Chinry's account, is on mute.
get Nanaja to address for me is in respect of what her own views really are on this, and especially with her background and the kind of work.
Okay, now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Great, great, I can hear you also. Thank you very much. I mean,
all right, that's great. Finally.
Great, great. So talk to me about your thoughts on the theme and what you make of the issue.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, I think you would like to take my preliminary remarks on the subject matter.
Yes.
And Yes, the theme is quite interesting, and it got me thinking, something that I've discussed with a lot of people I've met. What is Black? And what does it mean to even preserve our identity? When it comes to what is Black, even the concept of Black, some view that is derogatory, using our past with the divide between dark-skinned or Black, those of us with darker skin tones, as opposed to Caucasians, as we call it. So using the word Black is controversial in its sense, in its own sense. But of course, when you look at the context of this event, this conference, then you know that Black is used to identify us as Africans and those who are also in the diaspora and our African American sisters and brothers. And as Africans, we usually tout the fact that, yes, we are African. But I always advocate for the fact that even though we share so many similarities, we should also celebrate our diversity. So yes, I am from Africa, but I'm also a Ghanaian. So I like the way Europeans present themselves. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you. I think it's a connection network problem. But if you can hear me, you can take it again. Let me see if I can hear you quite clearly from now.
Yes, so I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
The connection is better now. Please go ahead.
Okay. So as I was saying, with the concept of Black, we also discuss being African. What does it mean to be African? And whether us touting ourselves as African is also the best thing to do, because in celebrating our similarities, we also need to celebrate our diversity and ensure that we do not lose our uniqueness as Ghanaians. So that's something we always need to look at. And I always say that with Pan-Africanism, the Pan-Africanism or the concept of Pan-Africanism in the times of Nkrumah have changed, because now we best serve our own interest if our idea of Pan-Africanism is more geared towards coming together for our mutual economic and social gain. With political, when we go to the world stage, yes, it's good for us to collaborate, but in the end, it's all towards our social development and our economic development as various nations. But we need not lose sight of the fact that in our collective goal and in our similarity as Africans, we still need to keep and stay true to the fact that we are Ghanaians. And when I say Ghanaians, that's for us in Ghana. But if you're Ivorian or you're from South Africa, you also need to stay true to that identity. Borrowing from gender studies, my master's courses in gender studies, there's a concept called intersectionality. And it has to do with the fact that even with women, an African woman or a Ghanaian woman's experiences is different from a European woman's experiences. An Italian woman's experience is different from my experiences as a Ghanaian woman. So there's so many factors that even though we are similar, we still need to take into cognizance the fact that we are diverse and we're different people. And in promoting the Pan-Africanist agenda, we still need to ensure that we stay true to our identities based on where we come from. And for me, that is, and most of us, it's Ghanaian. Most of us participating in this conference, it's being Ghanaian. Also, when it comes to preservation, so is it to add value to what we have? Or is it to change it totally? Or is it to keep what we have as it is? I would say it's a hybrid. We should keep those who can keep what we have as it is should do well to ensure that it's kept. And with the folklore board, for instance, with preservation, what we're doing is documenting what we have as a people, what makes us Ghanaian, documenting our folklore through a folklore inventory system that we are looking to get funding from the French Embassy and UNESCO, spearheaded by UNESCO, to start the documentation process. When you come to adding value to what we have, that's where we as the youth are very important. I don't think we need to keep what we have in the state in which it is. It's an argument and a debate that is ongoing at WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, because if you do not keep it in its own state and you develop upon it, some countries believe that it means it's something new and it's not your identity or your heritage, because it's not what was passed down from generation to generation. It's debatable, but I am of the view that adding value to what our forefathers and mothers gave to us is very important. And that's when us as young people are very critical to this, our creativity and the innovation we bring to the table. There's so many amazing things that people are doing to preserve our identity as a people, to preserve our heritage, to preserve what has been passed down to us. And some of the examples are even turning our folk tales into animation. We also have some individuals who have started doing virtual tours of festivals. So for instance, the Akwasidai Festival of the Asante people, or the Light Festival of it's an ethnic group in the north. And what they do is that they videotape these festivals, add all the technical magic, and now you can sit at home and watch the festival as if you are there, as if you are at the festival. And these are some of the creative things that we as youth bring to bear. And we say in our local parlance that what is ours is what we can promote the best. I cannot speak English better than the Queen, but I can promote my cultural heritage better than a foreigner. So it's good for us to learn modern ways of doing things. But I always say, and at every conference I speak at, I say that in everything you do, add something that shows that you are uniquely Ghanaian, that you are uniquely African, to show that you're from a place that has an identity, which is rich and is a nirvana of folklore. So there's so much you can display. And I'm happy about a lot of companies. Sorry, I did not hear that.
I was losing you, but you would wrap up on that point for me, because I have a lot of questions that I'll come back to you on based on some of the issues that you have raised. But finish the point that you were just making.
Certainly. So in everything we do, we need to ensure that what is ours is reflected. So if it's just putting an Adinkra symbol in your animation or in a story you're writing, or even naming your company after something Ghanaian or African, these are things, or wearing what is truly ours. These are ways in which you as an individual can promote Ghanaian heritage and promote African heritage.
Thank you very much, Ananda, for that also. I mentioned back to you on some of the issues that you raised in respect of also, reveling in our own unique identity, and that we're Ghanaians, we're Ivorians, we're Togolese, we're Beninese, among many other things. And those who have raised the issue that isn't that really also an endorsement or a promotion of some colonial legacy, for want of a better expression. But I'll come back to you on that. Let's go to Benin now and engage Horasi Koswede. He is a Pan-African African activist and also a lobbyist, founder and CEO of Mujiza Consulting. Horasi, for your time also, and really appreciate that you've been on for a very long time. I want to be sure if you can hear me. Give me a signal, and then I'll proceed with my question to you, Horasi.
Good evening to all. Crystal clear, I can hear you.
Great, very happy to have you on still with us, Horasi. So I'm attempted to get the minds of all the panelists in respect of the theme for this particular conversation. I want to know from you also very quickly what you make of all of this. When we say we're retracing our roots, it presupposes that we have crossed something. What's your own thinking and understanding of this?
If I get you very well, you are asking, point you on the topic we are talking about today.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. I greet everyone in the audience, and I thank you for the opportunity to share perspectives of this very interesting topic. Retracing our roots, the role of the youth in preserving Black identity. This topic brought forth a lot of questions. Our elders used to say, you will never find the right answer until you identify the correct question. So I'm wondering if my questions are right. When I read through the topic, I ask myself, what roots do we spring from? Who is youth? What is Black and what is identity? Together, we realize that it is complex matter than it might have seemed in the first place to actually put oneself on the path as far as Kwame Nkrumah said, when
Hello, Ras. I think that the connection to you is not so good. I'm not so sure if it is from your end or from my end. If you could reposition, I want to do the network situation. So we can try and see and hear you. Yeah, Ras.
Can you hear me?
I think this is better. So please go ahead. Looks like Horace
Hello?
is struggling. Yeah, Horace, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. May I proceed?
Great. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. I was stating that it is not enough to be born in Africa to be call oneself an African, as our forefathers Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey put it. We yet have Africa to be born in ourselves. So when I question the roots that we spring from, as a challenge to identify what unites us and what pushes the concept. And identity comes forward as the
Hello,
Hello?
Yes. Again, your line was breaking. Let's try one more time and see if we can get a better line to you. And so, if you can hear me, would you want to take that again so we see and we can hear you very clearly, because it's quite difficult from here now.
Let me try then. I hope you are all receiving very well.
Yeah, I think this is better. Let's see how we can manage with that.
Okay. So I was thanking you for the opportunity of expressing my thoughts with the fellow panelists on such an important. Thank you to All African Students Union for this talk. The topic itself raises quite a number of questions. Questions pertaining to what our roots could be, pertaining to who could be called youth and in what setting, and pertaining to what Black really means and what identity stands for in a world as ours that is tending or moving towards globalization and in some respect towards uniformization. So the topic itself brought forth a lot of questions. Until we find the right questions, we are sure that we can find the right answers. So it really kept me into thinking mode. When I look at roots, if we compare humanity to a forest, we would say that each country or each continent would be like a tree. And a tree has roots, has a trunk, has branches, has leaves, has fruits, has flowers, and so on and so forth. One thing that is interesting is to remark that those different parts of the tree were already in. And the seed, while destroying itself to give life to a new generation of trees, starts by putting roots into the ground. So as a continent, when we question our roots, would we say our roots are our ancestors? Would we say it is our common creator that people call God? Where do our roots really stand? And knowing that, we can know how we can actually water these roots to strengthen them and to bring forward the best kinds of fruits from the tree that we are as a continent. On the other hand, identity. Identity is really controversial because it means, in some sense, sameness, something that is identical to itself. It means oneness in our specific form. But identity also projects itself in opposition to other things. That means that identity distinguishes us from anything else that is not us. So in this double dimension, identity seems for us as Africans in the 21st century to be an embodiment of our heritage. Today, the words that I put after I am define where I stand, what I can achieve, and actually why I'm here. So identity, we need to question the content that comes from heritage. Heritage, culture, we need to put labels on these things and know where we stand according to these things as youth. That means our names, our languages, our songs, our rhythms, our dances, our cooking techniques, our architectural techniques, our clothing, everything that defines the specific responses we bring as Africans to basic human needs. As youth, one interesting thing that we can look towards is that as long as we are not a part of the solution, we remain a part of the problem. So it's very interesting that the preservation of our identity as a people is attached to that popular power that we constitute as youth. It's a very interesting topic, and I am looking forward to sharing perspectives with the fellow panelists and also having feedback and contribution from the audience. Thank you very much.
Very well. Thank you very much for asking me for that. I know it has been a very challenging one for you involved in us, but we do really appreciate that you stay on all along, even through the difficulties with technology and many other things. We're still on. Very part of the thing that we need to do collectively here on the continent. Infrastructure is another very key problem because we have very terrible communication network systems here. And when we talk about issues of African identity, Pan-Africanism, and all of those things, I'm sure good communication should be part of them. I mean, it's not beyond us. It must be part of what we consider to be our own identity. I want to go back to Manajua on some points that she made. Like I mentioned earlier, especially those of you also here in the auditorium, please feel free and draw my attention if you want to make a comment or contribution. On Zoom, if you go unmute, so Yes, if you also you can send a message.
Sorry, I did not hear you. I heard you mention my name, but I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, I'm not pushing yet, so grateful that you are in at this point. So I wanted to find out from you because you sort of hit on this distinction between or among African people or African countries, and insisted that much as we like this idea of unity and togetherness, we should also recognize that we are Ghanaians, we are Ivorians, we are South Africans, among many other things like that. How do you situate that within the context of our collective history in regards to our suffering, in regards to racism, colonialism, among many other things? There are those who argue that we need to first and foremost consider and see ourselves as one before we could address any of the issues that confront us. But you appear to have a significantly different position. Do you care to explain that and also show us how that is a better alternative to recognizing and identifying ourselves first and foremost as Blacks, as Africans?
Yes, so I've
Ghanaians,
had this
Nigerians,
discussion.
or Beninese or anything like that.
Okay, so I've had this discussion with a lot of people. I've attended quite a number of African conferences as well as international. When I say international, I mean outside Africa too. And I keep on saying, and some share the same view, some do not, but Pan-Africanism in the era of Kwame Nkrumah is different from Pan-Africanism now, or if we want Pan-Africanism to, should I say, carry more weight than it does now, it does currently, we need to look at it from a different perspective. We are not coming together anymore to protect our sovereignty in the context of Nkrumah's time. In Nkrumah's time, many countries, African countries, did not even have their freedom. Now, we are all free states. How do you become powerful? How do you become a world leader? How do you become a country that is more powerful on the world stage? It's your economic power. That's where it is now. Yes, we can argue that you should have, there are some that believe in power being or security being your manpower or your military power. But the concept of security has gone beyond that. Economic security is one of the most powerful tools on the world stage. So us coming together is not coming together to fight colonialism. Yes, we have different forms of colonialism that exist now. We talk about neo-colonialism and other forms. But the point is now what we are struggling for as a continent is to be recognized economically, is to empower our people, is to have sustainable development as different nations. So the idea, and I was happy when the government of Ghana and the government of Cote d'Ivoire came together and put their foot down when it came to cocoa. These are some of the things we need. We need collaboration beyond the concept of protecting our sovereignty and protecting the country against colonialism, but going to what we need. An empowered person is a powerful person. An empowered person cannot be, an empowered person knows their rights. An empowered person is able to protect themselves. So we need the empowerment. We as people of Ghana, people of Africa, are not as powerful as most of the other continents. And these are some of the things we need to look at. We need to look at it from a different concept, a different viewpoint. Youth, we want jobs. How do we get these jobs? We need to come together. If it's African states lobbying as a bloc when it comes to at the world stage, that's what has to happen. It happens somehow because I represent Ghana at WIPO. It's one of the UN agencies, and the Africa group is almost always on the same page when it comes to decision making. But we see, and I interacted with some of the diplomats, where some of the African countries look at their own interests as opposed to others. We have the local saying that with prior, if you have a broomstick, you can break it. But if it's an entire broom, you cannot break it. So we need to come together for mutual interest. But we need to identify these interests beyond the concept of protecting ourselves from colonialism and creating an identity, but to our mutual interest. And what do we need as different countries? What do we need to do to progress? When you go to Europe, the European Union is seen as a bloc. They are represented as a bloc on the international stage. But then we still know Italy is famous for pasta and pizza. We still know that France is famous for champagne. We still know that the UK is famous for fish and chips. And that's what I'm talking about. It's good for us to come together as a collective, but we shouldn't lose our individual identities as nations. That is why when you travel abroad, anyone that sees you just by virtue of the color of your skin decides that, okay, you are from Africa. Africa is not a bloc. It is beyond that. We have different identities, and we need to champion that too in order to have a stronger voice, but come together for our mutual interests too.
So I want to stay with you very quickly and briefly on this one. And let me
If you
also
can speak a bit
that,
louder, I would appreciate
yes,
that.
Great. So I'm saying that I want to stay with you with one more question. I just want to everything that will be coming to an end very shortly. Quite unfortunately, a lot of things have made this very difficult to do. But I want to ask you, in the work that you do, and again in your engagement with young people, what do you think here on the continent, their appreciation and understanding of our identity and our roots really are? Because oftentimes, quite anecdotally, if you engage people, you get a sense that for them it is just about artifacts and about some cultural festivals among many other things, and so they don't consider these things to be relevant to them today. So in your work, what do you think is the sense of understanding and appreciation of our roots as African people, or even in your case, as Ghanaian people, Nigerian people, Togolese people, and how relevant really do you think that this is to young Africans that you interact with because of the work that you do all the time?
Yeah, so I'm happy you've asked this question, and it boils down to the issue of how we look at Pan-Africanism and how we look at culture. Remember, I stated that in preserving culture doesn't mean you cannot change it, doesn't mean you cannot add on. What benefits do I derive from promoting my culture? These are questions young people ask. Unlike the times of Nkrumah, where just being proud to be a Ghanaian, being proud to be an African meant so much. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, young people do not see it that way. It's not just about me being proud of who I am, but what can I derive from being proud of who I am? And that's where we need to look at our culture as something that makes us who we are, but it's something that can also take you further. So it's something that you can look to see how you can derive and create sustainable growth from it. I am very keen on sustainable development because you don't exploit what you have, but you use it to develop the nation. So I visited a town called Murano, and what they do in Italy, what they do is that they use their mouths to blow glass, but the city is full 24/7 because with what they are doing, they've been able to develop tourism from it. They've been able to market it well for the city to be able to look after itself. And these are things that we need to look at. So beyond me being proud that I'm wearing this necklace, I should understand that when I purchase this necklace, a woman somewhere a Krobo woman somewhere is making money out of it. That woman can look after her children. She can take her children to school, and her children, when they go to school, can come back, produce these same beads, but with an upscale, with amplify the business, and also be able to, let's say, export these beads to different countries. So that's where we have to look at how we can expose the youth to the economic treasures, to the treasures of our cultural heritage. So it's not just about you being proud of being a Ghanaian, but I'm proud to be a Ghanaian, I'm proud to be an African. And I know that in being proud of what is mine, I can also benefit sustainably from it.
Emmanuel, thank you very much. I want to very quickly go to Horace. I'll take Horace, I'll take Fawzi, and I'll come back in here and try and see if we can wrap up. So Horace, if you can hear me, let's try again and see if the connection to you will be better this time. And I want to find out from you, also in the area that you work in the area of law, advocacy, lobbying, and what you call and jurisprudence. Within that particular space, how is this issue of retracing our identity, our roots, relevant there? And what do you think are the youth's appreciation and application of some of these understandings within that particular space to help the development of Africa more broadly?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the words of the panelists that just finished intervening. Interesting things sparked up from what she said. I work, as you said, in the field of heritage, but with a link to cultural aspects, to legal aspects, and to environmental impact related to heritage. So I think the first thing is to understand that heritage is the summary of everything that exists. Heritage is cultural, it is historical, it is natural, it is social, it's economical. Heritage is the baseline of everything that we draw from to do what we do and to be who we are. And the next step is culture. Culture is when heritage is embodied by a living being, a human being, and acted upon. So culture could be perceived as dynamic heritage, heritage on the go, on the move. And effectively, once heritage is on the move and it becomes culture, it is transformed. An elder once told me that respecting the memory of our elders would not be today what they did yesterday. It would be rather to know them enough to do today what they would have done today if they were here today. So it's not about mimicking, it's not about just Control X, Control V, about pasting and reproducing blindly everything that was passed along to us. It's not about that. It's about looking it through, simmering down, updating what we have received to make it relevant to the challenges that we are facing today as a people. And at the end of that bridge stands what they call tourism. That could be phrased as maybe culture marketing. So you market and you advertise whatever it is that you have that makes you unique to make it desirable. Now, how do we relate to that as youth today? The challenge is that we are not really looking to ourselves with the eyes of ourselves. Let me just put it in a sentence. If a Jew were to be raised by a Nazi, would he grow up to like, to love, to know himself? The speaker who took the floor before me said that we were free. I don't totally agree, because when your mouth is fed by the hand of someone else, you will repeat what he whispers to your ear. So are we really free until we are totally ourselves? it's possible to do a very good thing for a very bad reason. I don't totally agree when it's said that we can put aside the whole authenticity behind being an African, just focus on the economic part. I think it would be doing a good thing for a bad reason. The question is, who are we? How do we bring specific answers to the basic human needs that we share as humans? Once you fully master that, then you can take it, upgrade it, improve it, package it, normalize it, standardize it, and export it to the world. That is what the nations that are developing growing influence on the international scene are doing. That is what China is doing. Packaging, upgrading, standardizing, normalizing it, internationalizing their culture. That is what they're doing through mangas. That is what is happening on the international scene. And yes, today, lines have moved. We are no longer focusing exclusively on hard power based on military supremacy, but we now need to look towards soft power. What is the influence we are building on the global stage with culture as our mass construction tool? Culture based on education. Now, at that point, I would like to break and ask ourselves, is the education that we are receiving as Africans giving us the content that makes us African? Is our education teaching us our languages, teaching us our history, the real one, teaching us our dances, our rhythms, teaching us to build houses with the specific techniques that have been handed down for generations? Those are the things that we can actually brand and improve and now export to the world as solutions, because we have the same basic human needs. We need to eat, we need to house, we need to clothe, we need to heal ourselves, and so on and so forth. But each people, each continent, each community has specific responses. So yes, we need to focus on these responses, and we need to do an introspection to ask ourselves, am I fully who I am? Am I fully an African? Was I just born in Africa, or is Africa born in me? So, from a perspective, we have a lot of challenges that we are looking at as far as expressing ourselves is concerned. In a country such as Benin and in most of the French-speaking sub-Saharan African countries, our law systems are mostly based on imported structures. So, for instance, we have, let me just put it simple, a statue in the palace of the Asante Hene, the king of the Ashanti. Did I say it right?
Yes, the Asante is here.
So if we have a statue that is in the palace of the Asante Hene, and that has been there for 2, 3, 4 centuries, and that someone, for instance, by mistake, breaks down that statue while moving his car. That's an example. So modern law, as it is applied, would say maybe the person will be condemned to pay the monetary value of the statue. So he'll buy 3 or 4 packets of cement, a bit of paint, and something, and they will consider that justice has been rendered. But what about the identity value? What about the philosophical, the spiritual, the cultural value of that statue? How is it replaced? How does the person who broke it down mend for that? So we have a lot of things that we have a hard time putting in practice because we don't understand them in the first place, and they don't resemble us, who we are. Now, as you, what is
thank you. Let me just come in briefly here, because I think that you raised a lot of very critical questions. I don't know if Fauzi is on. Fauzi is an MPhil candidate in history, and she does a lot of work on identity formation, and especially in the areas of Sahel and all of that. If Fauzi is on and she can hear me, I would like to get her thoughts on this question that Horace raises, because it looks like we take it for granted that we are Africans. But we're Africans because of what? Is it because of skin color? Is it because we're born on the continent? Is it because we consciously relate or identify as such? Fauzi, I don't know if you are on and if you can hear me, just give me a signal if you are on, and I'll have you address that very quickly for me. Okay, it appears that Fauzi is not on and she cannot hear me. But I have two key questions, and I would appreciate at this point if the audience within the auditorium here will engage on this, because I noticed that when Nanadra raised the issues and the questions of the differences, and then Farasi also talked about the bit about whether or not we are free as a people. I could see a lot of people nod their heads here and all. So I want to come down here and then ask this question. Anybody I talk with will help me address it. Is there not a reality that we are perhaps not averting our minds to? That despite being collectively, Africans, it's also the reality that today, in contemporary times, a lot of things have changed. Interests have taken different forms and shapes. And for that matter, to truly progress and develop, we must also begin to look at ourselves and look at these new identities that we have created. Because if you take, for instance, just a period of independence, and you take Ghana, this is an entity that is 60 years old. Is it not enough to create its own niche, its own unique identity, and foster its own interest and development? Should we continue to, and must we necessarily still be boxed in the collective idea that we're all Africans first and foremost before we are Ghanaians or Nigerians or any of that? Or the recognition and acceptance of that collective identity is the panacea for the ultimate development of all the units in that space? Anybody at all here?
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Violet Mamu. I'm a quantity assurance specialist and also a workshop coordinator. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in strongest terms, in the very, very strongest terms, I conducted a lot of workshops around here as the workshops coordinator for the harmonization of African higher education. It's sad and very, very sad, and the higher education and education community is now starting to appreciate it. Okay, colonialism came and went easily, but in terms of our local food, in terms of our local technology, because the challenge, the major challenge now is if anything is not ICT driven, it's not technology. You see how our perception is centered around, partly because we are a contribution to that. We don't appreciate ourselves as we are, as Africans. We demean ourselves in terms of our skin color, our origin, our food, our languages, and everything else. And this thing is killing us. Imagine today, if, for example, in South Africa, they don't grow yam, and all of a sudden, I know there are a lot of West Africans in South Africa. I pack my yam, get it from the raw people there, pack it and send it there. We get also from them. Can't we start our own economies? We can. We have a lot which is being valued there in the developed countries, which we do not value ourselves. Because what you want is to say, this food, this what? That is killing us. It's killing us, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be frank. So what we need to do is, our curriculum needs to incorporate these things. And if you continue to say we are in bondage, we are tied up, it's not true. It's not true. We can still use our own traditional things to do things. Because even when you look, for example, in agriculture, we have the medicines for cattle, for chicken, which have been taken and exported there as herbs. A person just gets 2 kg sugar and it goes. Those people value it, but you are shunning yourself because that's what you have to do. Well, I think we have a lot of room to look at ourselves again, like ourselves. Do you know the reason why also most children fail English and sometimes mathematics? Because they need to think in their local language and listen to what is being said, transform it into their own. But we always say it's impossible. It's impossible. How is it impossible when now the Chinese are coming with Mandarin and they are all rushing for Mandarin? And that's their own language. The French, you take your child, you can pay a fortune for your child to learn French. There is Kiswahili. There are other local languages. When you look, for example, in the Francophone countries, because I'm a continental person, I've seen it. Now we can't define them by any local language, except the French. If they learned, they are learned. Am I telling something which is not true? Is it not true? But how did they master to learn French and leave their language? Ladies and gentlemen, this thing is the one which is killing us. I can give you, allow me, just the few concluding remarks. I went to Cameroon for a workshop. When I got there, we were on tea break. This gentleman came to me and said, I know Dr. Makupa, I said, hello. And he said, Doc, I don't wear any suit other than a suit made in France. And I told him, a suit made in France was produced in a factory here in Cameroon. Somebody said, I don't drink any wine other than wine that is produced in France. I said, that wine which you buy expensive in France has been produced in South Africa. Am I lying? I'm not lying. Most of the wine throughout the developed world and other continents is coming from Africa. So what are we saying about ourselves? Until we know our value, even the teaching method, we can teach very well mathematics and everything using our own languages. There is no time. I could display to you the local technologies which can be used to quickly share your base. Because sometimes the quantities also are not so economic to have a huge shelling machine when we only have 2 hectares. We don't think about all those dynamics to put one-on-one together. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the last thing is, do we have any academics here? Even if we don't yet, I know this is going to come on YouTube. What I want to tell academics is that in Africa here, they do not want to build journals which are quality journals and strong. The promotion is based on a view published in a high impact journal. The high impact journals in Africa, they are there, but for them, they want to from other continents. That's where they will hunt day and night for a high impact journal. Pay a fortune to publish, pay a fortune to access your publication, and then get nothing thereafter. The referencing and everything is now going there. Now, look at the major issue. The major issue is what is published in there. What is published is this important for mobile money or for online business, it will never see itself in Africa. It goes there, whichever continent, and they do the software. You have done all the dirty work for them. You give them in a silver platter in the name of promotion that you want an addition of $300, and yet you can start a multi-million-dollar business with that which you have researched, and now you are sending it out. So we need to think about ourselves. Our major enemy is ourselves, because we shun ourselves, we underrate ourselves, we look down upon ourselves. But why? I like myself as I am. And everything that is, if we were all to be like that, you would see the progress we have to make. People also start at a high level, start at the grassroots with the children in school, and then you take it up. The children, as they grow, by the time they become graduates, I hear they just say employability skills, employability skills. It should go along with employment creation skills. Because employability, you only want to be employed. You don't want to start a company. Even if you can start one simple one with simple technology, I can go on and on.
And really appreciate that in very young contemporary parlance, there's a drop of mic. Then I just boom and then we're done. But I would really need to go, like I promised. I will take maybe one more comment from here. Yeah, let me come to you this side.
Thank you. I want to come back to your question. I am very surprised that we still ask that kind of question. What is the interest of being Pan-Africanist, and what is an opposing Pan-Africanism with nationalism? I think I'm very surprised that 60 years later we are asking the same question. Well, we all know that this has been discussed again during in the 60s, even in the 50s and the 40s. And most of the intellectual, most of the wise people have agreed that the Pan-Africanism is complementary to the new nation that we will be building. So why this question now came back? Why the Pan-Africanism came back? Because during 60 years, what countries did not to follow Pan-Africanism recommendation, but try to be a nationalistic development model, which is today a failure. We did not teach in education. We did not make a Pan-African education. We did all what our friend has already mentioned. So we have not tried Pan-Africanism, but we tried nationalism and we failed. So for me, there is no any autonomy, autonomic aspect of the Pan-Africanism and nationalism. And I think really, I really advise that in this kind of meetings, we avoid asking unnecessary questions that we just lose time to talk about and become a rhetoric. And I really advise that we ask questions that will help us to advance. So that's my comment.
Very well. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate that. Except that oftentimes also, and again, as you can tell when the conversation goes on, there are those who also truly, and as it stands now, still don't believe that the way forward is the way it has been imagined over the years. I mean, the years of our home in the area over the years on what the approach is on Africanism, but how. And so all of those things are very interesting. I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to make a very quick comment, then I'll go back to our panelists on Zoom for a minute. Each from all of them must be trying a lot. We started very slow, obviously more and more. So the fellow very quickly back to the online platform. Give each of our panelists a minute to see our panelists try and support. So Also with you, Nahajwa, very quickly, and thank you once again for the patience and everything. You have 1 minute. Try and see if you can summarize your thoughts on everything that we've been saying so far here in this particular conversation.
Yes, so there are a lot of things I wanted to say, but because of time, I think I won't respond to any of the comments made, even though my profession as a lawyer is making my lips itch to respond. But all I want to say is that I believe that the time is now. We need to become more solution-oriented as opposed to talking about the problems and trying to determine what, if it's identity or culture or heritage and the likes mean. As I stated earlier, I represent Ghana at WIPO. And believe you me, just to find a definition of what culture means has taken us more than 10 years. And that is where we will continue to be if we decide to try our best to determine or get definitions for certain concepts, as opposed to making hay whilst the sun shines. As young people, as youth, I would admonish us to look beyond whether it's Pan-Africanism, the kind of Pan-Africanism, which has been a long existing question and it has still not been solved. But what we need to look at is creating sustainable development, creating growth, development in all forms, which will inure to the benefit of us as a country and as a continent. Lastly, let's stay true to who we are. Let's always remember that there is value in us as Ghanaians, as Africans, and we can use it to create a better life for ourselves. So in everything you do, be an ambassador of Ghana, be an ambassador of Africa, and shine the torch of Ghana. And don't be problem-oriented, be solution-oriented. There are many problems, there are many challenges. As I said, this I have to correct. I did not say that we are free in the sense that we are free in all sense. I stated that there are different forms of colonialism that exist. But the point is that when it comes to sovereignty as a nation, the state having its sovereignty, we can say that that exists. There's no country that is under another country in the context of slavery that we had at that time. So we need to move beyond our problems and let's find solutions. There's a lot of wealth in Africa. A UNESCO study showed that even if in the culture and creative industries, it contributes millions of cedis, about $23.5 million to the world stage. But when it comes to Africa, only 3% of this huge amount is what we contribute. But we are the most diverse and the most culturally rich continent. So let's look at how we can promote what is ours without losing the value, but also ensure that we create sustainable development for ourselves and for ourselves as a nation and the continent. Thank you. Hello.
About African especially. Give India and a watershed between 45 and 1963. All the activities, and in fact, if you observe very well, a lot of foreign policies of both independent African leaders of countries around certain Pan-African being, especially do a textual analysis of Ghana's foreign policy, you find that one of its other objectives, as always, is still linked to Africa's total liberation. Even just as recent as 2000, at the Ghana's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we had a desk for diaspora relations and also regional integration, maybe an evaluation of Africa's development. It might not be the same for our own folks who some lived in the times, so I would term them phenomenologists, but for me, as a having studied this, don't study or learning discipline, sometimes teaching African politics at the Lagos Center for International Affairs. I find this very important. I see it. I find that history, culture, tradition, taught must preach, must contour everyday life, and it must be a part of lessons that in several universities are invested required for wisdom to that of folks investigate both UDS and Lagos, when assisting teaching, we teach the African Studies course at the most one. So it is part of the system because the system has realized that out of the 4 quadrants of development, when you take your administrative institutions, your economic institutions, your political institutions, the 4th one is a social and cultural institution. So if you recognize it's been dovetailed into the things we do. And I'm so excited to have been a part of this program today. And thank everyone who started patiently to listen to me. And I also want to add that I learned so much, especially from the insightful introduction from Professor Washington. Thank you, Karim, for the moderation.
Thank you very much, Elon. And so let me go to Aras very quickly. Aras, if you can hear me, you have a minute to also sum up your own thoughts on everything that we've been discussing. And I'm very sorry that we could not finish with you, but we're going to talk on the issues that we're raising there. I really appreciate it. Because quite clearly for me, you're providing some very contrary perspective.
Hello. Hello. I think your microphone went off before you finished your question. So I'm not receiving any stream from the auditorium.
So I'm just asking you to try and sum up. Great. So, Horace, I'm saying, if you could sum up briefly for me in a minute, I'd really appreciate it because we're far gone into the time for the other programs to continue.
Okay, thank you very much. It was an interesting topic to bring across. I think what is to be taken away from this topic is our responsibility. Responsibility as youth to know who we are. Dialogue starts from knowing oneself and mastering oneself. Only in that respect can we be able to bring something valuable to the table and enriching a dialogue. Dialogue between countries, dialogue between continents, dialogue between cultures. In every perspective, dialoguing requires us to know ourselves. And as youth, we have the ability today to become a part of the solution. I have the uttermost belief that we are the generation that create the miracle of that we are proud to share with the world. And it starts by our everyday choices. What we wear, where we go, how we do it, and what we do it for. So I believe that in our identity as Africans, there are solutions that are waiting to be revealed to the world. And that as youth, we can tackle these questions and use the strategic levers of technology, of internet, of globalization to bring more of
Africa to the world in the best quality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Horasi, for that very brief one. We're grateful. I want to say a very big thank you to my panelists here. Hello, Maui Lukwao is an affiliate with the University of Ghana's Institute of African Studies. Akosude Horasi, I hope that if I got the first name wrongly, you will forgive me. I'm able to pronounce all the French and Italian, Spanish names in football and in many other spaces. But my brother from Italy, I'm always struggling to mention the name correctly. And that also speaks to the problem that we've been discussing here today. But thank you very much, Horasi, for your time as well. Nanajwa has also been with us. Nanajwa, like I mentioned earlier, is very much for your insightful contributions to our discussions here today. Just to wrap up as we go, the conversation will continue definitely because we need to really do that. I have interest in philosophy, and until just about a year ago in my MPhil program, I had hardly heard names of African philosophers or come into contact with their works. Plato's, the Socrates, and all of those Greek people who borrowed all that they knew from here on the continent. But that's the nature of the problem that we have. And so if you visit the University of Ghana or many other departments across the continent and you are studying philosophy, in your introduction to philosophy, you won't hear Kotonji, you won't hear Kosiri, you won't hear Kwame Gyekye, you won't hear Theophil Obenga or any of those people. It's only when you're fortunate enough to do some advanced study into philosophy that you will encounter them. So essentially, the very core African ideas have become very secondary because perhaps they're not even good enough. And up till now, there are debates as to whether or not there's any African philosophy. That tells you how deeply this problem is. And the politics of knowledge, I believe, especially for academics and for universities, your work maybe must go beyond just being, you don't have the luxury of continuing. And if we all have that realization, the kinds of things that we do, the kinds of things in the work that we do. So I really appreciate your time for being with us, and for those of you also joined across different platforms here on the continent and around the world. We're grateful. The conference continues, and there are a lot more that will be coming your way, especially from tomorrow as well. And just to also quickly run by you some of the things to expect. Tomorrow, as we know, we have lined up some very impressive speakers, rich with all the knowledge and everything that you want to know. The likes of Professor Olefi Ekiti Asante. I've only encountered him on YouTube. Very happy to have him around here. And the very affable PLO Lumumba is also going to be addressing this conference, among many other very distinguished personalities on the continent and elsewhere. So do well to participate and visit the social media platforms of the Association of African Universities on Facebook and many other platforms to also interact and get to be a part of this conference. My name is Abdul Karim Ibrahim. I work with all Africa Students Union, and we have been facilitating this particular one. We're grateful to the entire technical team and everybody for making this possible. I'm sure we'll continue to thank you all, and we really enjoy your company. Have a nice one as the summit continues.